Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty wild journey from the absolute broadest definitions of artificial intelligence all the way down to the microscopic math of a single artificial neuron, and then zooming right back out to see how these massive systems are actually deployed out in the real world. If you've been hearing these buzzwords everywhere and just want a clear, structured roadmap of how this technology actually works under the hood, well, you're in exactly the right place.
All right, let's just quickly look at our roadmap for this explainer. We've got 5 main stops. First, AI, ML, and DL. Second, inside artificial neural networks. Third, how machines actually learn. Fourth, transformers and advanced models. And finally, managing the ML lifecycle. Okay, let's jump right in.
Section 1. AI, ML, and DL. Let's start by looking at the big picture to clarify all those buzzwords that literally dominate today's tech landscape.
Arthur L. Samuel said something way back in 1959 that perfectly captures the core dream of machine learning. He said, "A computer can be programmed so that it will learn to play a better game of checkers than can be played by the person who wrote the program." The idea was absolutely revolutionary. Instead of hard-coding every single instruction, what if we just built systems that learn patterns from data entirely on their own? That idea right there is the bedrock of everything we're talking about today.
I always like to think of this as a set of Russian nesting dolls. Artificial intelligence is that outermost, biggest doll. It's basically any system that simulates intelligent behavior, which can even include simple rule-based expert systems. Now, open that up, and sitting right inside is machine learning. This discards those rigid rules and instead favors statistical algorithms that learn from historical data. Open that one, and right in the center you'll find deep learning. This is the narrowest subset, and it relies entirely on complex, multi-layered artificial neural networks.
When you compare them, you'll notice a really clear separation between traditional machine learning and deep learning. While traditional ML handles structured, tabular data perfectly fine on standard CPUs, deep learning is hungry. It thrives on massive, messy, unstructured datasets. We're talking millions of images, audio files, text documents, and it requires immense computational power, specifically GPUs, just to crunch through all those complex layers.
Moving on to Section 2, Inside Artificial Neural Networks. Let's go a level deeper and see exactly what makes deep learning function mathematically.
To really wrap our heads around artificial networks, we actually need to look at the human brain first. Think about a biological neuron. It's got these dendrites that catch incoming inputs from other neurons. If those signals are strong enough, bam, the neuron fires an electric signal down its axon, passing it along to the next set of neurons. It's basically an intricate biological relay race.
Now, consider the digital counterpart. Artificial nodes replace those biological neurons, and the edges connecting them act as the axons. But here is where the magic happens. Every single edge has a specific numeric weight. The node takes all those incoming inputs, multiplies them by their weights, adds them all up, and then runs that total sum through what we call a mathematical activation function. That function acts as the bouncer. It determines if this digital neuron is actually going to fire.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that it all boils down to simple multiplication and addition. Let's look at a basic perceptron. Imagine input 1 is 24, and its weight is 0.5. That gives us 12. Input 2 is 16, with a weight of -1.0, which gives us -16. The node sums those together, giving us a neat -4. The activation function looks at that -4, compares it to a threshold, let's say 0 in this case, and decides to just stop the signal dead in its tracks. By stacking literally millions of these tiny math decisions on top of each other, your smartphone can suddenly recognize your face or translate a street sign in a foreign language in real time.
All right, Section 3, How Machines Actually Learn. We know the architecture now, but a static set of math equations doesn't just magically become intelligent on its own.
It's one thing to make a prediction, right? But I want you to really think about how a machine corrects itself when that prediction is totally wrong. Let's say a network looks at a picture of a cat and super confidently predicts that it's a dog. How in the world does it adjust those millions of weights so it doesn't make that exact same mistake again?
The secret sauce is a process called backpropagation. First, the system calculates its error, which is known mathematically as the loss function. Think of it like tasting a soup you're cooking and realizing, whoa, that needs way more salt. Then, using an optimization algorithm called gradient descent, it runs in reverse. It literally travels backward through the network, from the output layer all the way to the input layer, incrementally tweaking the salt, or the weights, on every single edge,
So the next time it sees that cat image, the error shrinks.
Now, I should mention there's a pretty big downside here. These deep neural networks operate as what we call a black box. To give you an idea, if you use a transparent ML model like linear regression, you can easily look under the hood and see exactly which variable caused a specific outcome. But if you use a deep neural network to predict, say, the success of a Kickstarter campaign, it might give you an incredibly accurate prediction, but it's notoriously difficult to trace exactly which combinations of those millions of variables and weights actually caused that final output. We know it works, but peering inside the box? Yeah, that's incredibly complex.
Moving on to Section 4, Transformers and Advanced Models. Let's look at how researchers have leveled up these networks to handle highly complex data. Because while standard networks are great, they definitely struggle with things like high-resolution images or the super subtle nuances of human language.
And this is where advanced architectures come into play. For images, we rely on convolutional neural networks, or CNNs. These use filters to basically extract specific features like edges and shapes. For sequential data, we historically leaned on RNNs. But honestly, the real game changer here is the transformer. Transformers utilize this brilliant attention mechanism that allows the model to selectively focus on the most relevant parts of an input sequence, all at the same time, no matter how far apart those parts are. This specific architecture is exactly what's powering today's massive generative AI and large language models. It's the engine behind the hype.
Finally, Section 5, Managing the ML Lifecycle. Let's zoom all the way back out for a second. How are these massive models actually managed safely out in the real-world enterprise?
Well, this whole enterprise process relies on a continuous loop known as MLOps. Machine learning in a business environment isn't just a fun science experiment on someone's laptop. It's a full-blown life cycle. It kicks off with careful data preparation and feature engineering. Because honestly, a model is only ever as good as the governed data it's fed. From there, it gets trained, rigorously evaluated against test data, deployed into production, and crucially, this is the big one, monitored continuously.
And that continuous monitoring is absolutely vital because of something called model drift. A model that performs flawlessly during training can, and honestly often will, completely faceplant in production. Why? Because the real world changes. Consumer behavior shifts, the economy fluctuates, data inputs naturally evolve over time. Stale training assumptions will inevitably lead to bad predictions. That's exactly why continuous monitoring and retraining are absolute must-haves for enterprise data teams. You just can't deploy a model and walk away expecting it to work perfectly forever.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. As we step back and consider the sheer power of everything we've covered today, and we look at statistics projecting, say, a 90% automation risk for waiters and 57% for taxi drivers by 2035, we really have to ask ourselves, how is this deeply transformative technology going to reshape our human future? Are we just building replacements, or are we actually building the ultimate tools for human empowerment? I'm going to leave you to chew on that one. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.